Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. Today's episode is sponsored by my 3D printing website. Visit dangly3d.com, where you can pick up your own Carmen Chameleon Karma Stories channel mascot. And yes, it comes complete with cookies. I've just added a bunch more items to that website, including cherry blossom dragons, storm dragons, and lunar dragons. Check them out at dangly3d.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from tourist number 865. Nobody passed the yellow line? Gotcha. It's gonna sound like it's fairly reasonable to start, but trust me, it gets silly really quick. Had just started working at one of the big railway companies as a safety officer, customer service rep. Now, as you can imagine, that is basically herding sheep, and not very effectively. People have places to go, but I'd rather they didn't end up dead. During probation, one of the bosses got moved to my station. Now, this guy could not have fit the police description of up his boss's butt more if he'd tried. Looking like he spent the last 40 years dreaming of having a badge on with significance, and by God, he was going to use it. On the platform of every station, there is a yellow line on the floor, few feet from the edge, to signify where not to walk, lest the turbulence turns you into a train's doormat. Simple stuff. And when a train is pulling up, you're to keep everyone behind it. No issues so far. That's literally my job. Now, for weeks, he'd been a stickler for his way, but he would mask it as, "This came from head office." But on this particular day, whatever bee was in his bonnet came out in full force, and he was masking nothing. Once a train was stopped, so long as you don't have full gaggle at the door, we usually have no issues with 1 or 2 people. You know, the London crowd who won't wait, being next to the door ready. It's efficient if nothing else. The train had stopped, 3 people were waiting for the doors to open, they did, the train left. This guy starts shouting from literally the other platform, in front of other travelers, roasting the crap out of me. Safety, yes, but this was obscene. So he decided to enact a rule of his own. If you want to pass this probation, I want to see everyone behind that yellow line for a full 30 seconds before you signal to let the doors open. If a single person moves, you talk to them about safety and wait again. So let me get this straight. That 30 seconds resets for every time someone else doesn't listen and crosses the line? Did I stutter? Did you effing what? Oh, you're on, sweet child. Across that day, I was honestly looking at my watch more than I was anything else. Remember, it's for your safety after all. Plot twist, dual line station. One into the city, one on the way to London. No way past it. If a train is delayed, nothing else moves. Cue about 2 hours later, and sure enough, the dweeb butt manager comes charging down the platform. What the hell are these delays for? I've got head office tearing us a new one. Just making sure we adhere to the 30 seconds, boss. I've never had so much feedback about safety. Well, the feedback I'm getting is we now have a near 10 train bottleneck at this station. Firstly, it's you have a bottleneck, not us. Second, I'm merely doing exactly as you asked. His face dropped, clearly understanding what had happened. Right, then, well, you can talk to the area manager and explain this for yourself because he's gonna be here in about 15 minutes. He's coming here? Ha, deal. Did he go white as a ghost? Yes. Did he try stopping me seeing the area manager? Yes. Was he successful? Hell no. What ensued was maybe a 20-minute conversation between me and the area manager. Me finding out that this manager had been moved more than a few times for various issues. The meeting between them two lasted probably 90 seconds, if that, and then a very sheepish looking manager slowly slinked up to me and in the lowest voice ever said, "You're doing a good job. I trust you to use your judgment with the onboarding process," and then immediately scuttled away. He's moved on since, but apparently it was a personal request this time. Can't think why. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Tom Marvolo Tomato. It says, there are too many people who are under-medicated in positions of power. Another commenter down below called Bangley gave us a little bit of food for thought. They said, this is a great story and it kinda makes sense, but as a train driver in the UK of 7 years, nobody signals to anyone to open the doors. So I'm not 100% sure about this story. Was your role train dispatcher and you're signaling to the driver and conductor to close the doors? Conveniently enough, OP hasn't responded to any of the comments on this story, so we don't know if it's made up or not. So, I'd like to know your opinions. If you're listening on YouTube, comment down below and let me know your thoughts on this story. This story comes to us from EmbarrassedEye2832. It's my job to deal with it? Sure. I work in public services. It was a new role, and I am the first and only one of me. Essentially, this means that my job scope can be pretty broad, and I have a lot of fingers in a lot of different pies. I have also gained the reputation of a no-nonsense problem solver. Cannot for the life of me think why. So when people have issues, they tend to come to me. I was busily hashing out a few tasks last week when I get something else slapped onto my plate. A manager of a service we commission with, appropriately named Karen, has apparently been working her way through people because she isn't getting the resolution she wants. So one of the managers in finance wants me to look into this for Karen. Now, a thing to note here is that every April we increase rates along with inflation, but she didn't get it. Thing is, it's out of our hands. The services we commission from her are funded between us and another separate public service, Public Service 2. We pay half, Public Service 2 pays half, but we haven't paid the increase because Public Service 2 hasn't agreed anything yet. What can I say? It's the public sector. Our team's conversation goes something like, hey, finance manager, I can't actually do anything about this because finance manager cuts me off. This is your job. It's your department that deals with these contracts, so deal with it. I don't care how, just get her off my back. Now, that's mostly paraphrased, except for that last sentence, which he said verbatim. I don't care how, just get her off my back. I write in chat, to confirm, I am to deal with this, and you do not care how? Finance manager says, yes, for Christ's sake. I crack my knuckles and get to work, sending her the following email and CCing in finance manager and my own manager. Dear Karen, I apologize for the delay in the inflationary increase for service. However, as this is jointly funded between ourselves and Public Service 2, we are beholden to their financial timelines. As Public Service 2 have not yet agreed to the 4.1% increase, we are unable to process it. Regardless of how many individuals you contact, this will remain the case until Public Service 2 sees fit to approve. In instances such as these, our recourse should be to head down to the offices of Public Service 2 and begin smacking naughty bottoms. But I fear HR would frown upon such action in these enlightened times. Might I suggest contacting Public Service 2 yourself in order to expedite the process? I'm sure finance manager, finance.manager at my place of work, would be happy to direct you to the appropriate contact and answer any further questions. Warmest regards, OP. I then immediately got a Teams call from my manager where for 30 seconds, all I could hear was laughing, and he asked me what was going on. I sent him the screenshots of the chat messages between myself and finance manager and relayed the Teams call. My manager told me that it was not, in fact, my job. How odd. And later that day, finance manager apologized, but also warned me that in the future, you should probably hold back on the bullock withering sarcasm. People might not find it amusing. I think I'm hysterical personally. OP added an update down below this one. It says, update, I had a Teams call from finance manager. Turns out he'd just gotten off the phone with Public Service 2. They'd called him asking who the heck Karen is and why they received 41 separate emails from her in the past week. Seems like someone set that particular pit bull onto public service too. But whoever that person was must have made a terrible, horrible error, because they sent her to a completely different team that were apparently very confused as to what was going on. So they sent her to another team, who sent her to another team. She's currently being passed around like a spliff at uni housing. But here's the kicker. She's being passed off due to her nuisance behavior. That's a given. But also because Public Service 2 can't authorize the uplift in her fees. She filled in her business address incorrectly back in January when we began commissioning with her. We have one address, Public Service 2 have another, meaning that Public Service 2 systems have flagged it as a discrepancy. And she's so busy demanding her money that she isn't responding to the urgent emails that Public Service 2 team have been sending out. There does not seem to be an end in sight. Absolutely astounding, no notes, 10 out of 10. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called 6854Wiggles. It says, smacking naughty bottoms should be approved in the HR Standard Operating Procedures Manual. More would get done. Another commenter down below called Angry Cod said, I appreciate your apology, but since you tempered it with a warning, then let me go ahead and warn you right back. I'm not putting up with your department's BS. Find some other toady to order around. So the finance manager told OP to do something. OP wanted to make sure they were absolutely sure they knew what they were doing and asked them such. OP even clarified that they could do anything they wanted, and the finance manager agreed. So this isn't on OP at all. This is completely on that finance manager. This story comes to us from MD Lapla. Don't throw rank on a tournament against high schoolers. You might get malicious compliance. Picture this: high school computer education class. Computer education class consisted, for 3 years, 13 to 15-year-old in Sinclair Spectrum computers running logo software for programming. Then school finally upgrades hardware. We get 486 PCs with DOS, Windows 3.1, and color monitors. A whole new world for kids 16 and 17 years old. Professor is early 30s, very serious about his craft. Cool guy once you get to know him. Aide, former student, thinks that he's the bee's knees and everyone should adore him. He's just somebody that likes to micro-bully people, but harmless because he has no real power. All power comes from Professor. Class is being taught on a long and narrow rectangular room. Only windows are to a large patio, no windows to the hall. Around 12 to 14 computers, each with its own desk, 2 kids per computer. The first desk on one end of the room, near the door, being the teacher's computer. Kids being kids, we bootleg copies of video games to play on the farthest side computers, since computers are really expensive and you're really lucky if you have one that good at home. Mostly football, soccer games. We sometimes get caught, sometimes get sent out of class for the day and given a speech, but that's it, since my class is comprised of above average students. So the day before last, Professor says, guys, since pretty much all of you have passed, tomorrow, last day of class, we're having a striker. Soccer game, 6-minute games, very fast-paced, popular back in the day, tournament. Aide and myself will compete, and all of you will as well. Bring chips, bring something to drink, non-alcoholic of course, and may the best player win. The tournament starts. Semifinals end up being me against Aide and one friend against Professor. Before the games, both Aide and Professor approach us very seriously and tell us, may the best player win, but if you beat us, we might fail you. Me and my friend laughed. They don't. I'm not about calling his bluff and risking problems. I chose Trinidad and Tobago, very bad team. Aide chooses Brazil, best team on the game. My friend goes with some mid-team I don't remember. Professor chooses Argentina, very good team. All the other students, already out of the tournament, gather around the remaining 2 computers to watch the games. Halftime, Aid is beating me 3-0. Professor is beating my friend 4-0. Aid says with a satisfaction smirk on his face, "Come on guys, we're bluffing. Do your best to beat us. This is not entertaining anymore." But he does not know one thing. 4 of us spend around 2 to 3 hours, 3 to 4 times a week playing the game. We know every single trick, everything there is to know about the game. They're beating us because we're afraid they might pull rank. I say to Aid, "But you won't fail us, right?" No, do your absolute best." I look at my friend, he smirks maliciously. I smile. We say, "Okay," and proceed to comply. Big time. The games end 3-11 and 4-12. Aid almost breaks the keyboard. The rest of the students are going nuts. Professor takes it like a champ. My friend beats me in the finals. Nobody cares anymore. To this day, I still don't know how nobody came to the room to say something about the noise. It was a perfect way to end high school. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Red Black Tree. It says, "I used to be really good at fighting games. Old school, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, etc. I made the mistake of challenging my 11-year-old nephew in one of the latest Street Fighters. That was embarrassing. I won a single round because his mom distracted him for a second. I was good when I was young, fast, and practiced for hours." There's nothing like reading a story where people refer to 486 PCs and DOS and Windows 3.1 and the transition to color monitors to make you realize just how old you are because you remember all of those. Oh my gosh, get off my lawn. Some of my fondest memories from being in school were being in the computer lab and programming things in BASIC. Yeah, I wasn't very interesting. This story comes to us from Exotic Chemist 7624. "You have to pick me up." For context, my brother is an inconsiderate douche canoe. It was either Saturday or Sunday, and I had the day off. I'm chilling at home, about to cook up something for dinner or late lunch, when I get a phone call, 4:30 p.m. My brother called me and expected me to jump up and go pick him up from his job because none of the family were available on a busy weekend for them. When I say he expected, I mean he called me up and said the exact words, "You have to pick me up." This was before he had his own car and license, around 18. His job was on the other side of town, a full 30 to 40 minute drive or more depending on traffic, and it was at 4:30 p.m., just before hectic work traffic at 5 p.m. If I had refused to get him, he would have called either of our parents and whined until I was bitched at to go pick him up. Understanding the box I had been put in, a Grinch-like smile grew across my face as I made up my mind. What did I do? I picked him up and then made 3 stops along the way home. 3 long stops. The first was at a gas station. I had been low on gas and he couldn't complain because I was his only ride. At the second stop, I pulled in at a restaurant to eat inside, Tijuana Flats. The whole time, he is complaining that I should take it to go and that we were only 15 minutes from home. The whole time, he's whining about me wasting time and that he had to do homework. That homework took like 10 minutes and then he just passed out with his TV and Xbox on. Eventually, he even called Grandma to complain. So much so, she called me to ask if I had offered to buy him any food while there. I did. Then told him tough he wanted to get the ride, and he got it. And finally, at stop 3, a supermarket 4 miles from home, I needed a few groceries. Around 6:15 to 6:20 p.m., when we finally got home, he complained like a little bee to our parents, Grandma and Dad. But when my dad got home from work, he just laughed, gave me a high five, and was like, "Why didn't I ever think of that?" And I was like, "Hey, maybe next time, I'll come along so we can make a few extra stops." OP added a quick PS on the bottom. It says, he had been doing the "you have to give me a ride" thing without a please in sight for a while now, and it was starting to get on everyone's nerves. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called DudeLoveAll2814. It says, "This is the best response to demanding family. You want a ride? This is the one you're getting." So I want to look at something really quickly here because it sounds like both OP and the brother still live at home. The brother is out working their job on the other side of town and doesn't have a car, but they do have a job. So why not take a cab home? OP, when your brother called, you should have said to him, "Okay, take a cab home." And if he said he didn't want to and you had to pick him up, I'd say, "Okay, but I'm going to charge you the exact same that it would cost you for a taxi." If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.